Live. All right, I'm gonna get straight into it, guys. First, let me pull up the comments here. Let me know if you can hear me. I've got a new mic set up, and I've also got the Elon Musk internets because I live in the country. So if I freeze up or if the audio drops or anything like that, give me a heads up so I can go back and backtrack and repeat myself. Just give it a few seconds here. Hey, Henrik, what's happening, man? All right, so get straight into it. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. All right, we're good. Audio is a go. Let's get straight into it. Today, I'm going to tackle the subject of stress head on. So stress is a massive barrier for fat loss and performance, right? You could be doing everything well in the diet and the training and everything, but if you're not managing stress, the ceiling for progress, it just gets much, much, much lower, right? And it's really going to affect the long-term results. Like, sure, you can beat yourself up. You can, starve yourself in a diet and beat yourself in the gym, and you'll get a decent before and after. But if you want that long-term sustainable progress, you want to start looking at things like stress, right? And I've seen it all at this point, right? I've had clients who, right from the get-go, they're struggling to lose the weight, even though they're putting in a pretty good effort, right? And I have other clients who maybe they lose 20 pounds, but then they hit a plateau, right? And they can't, doesn't matter what they do, they can't really seem to break past that plateau and make any progress, right? So, my style is to get really specific and not leave anything up to ambiguity, right? And luckily for me, I've had some really awesome clients that are just willing to do the work and, invest in things like comprehensive blood work and self-quantifying devices like the Oura ring or the Whoop, which I think are the two best devices for that. And so we've been able to implement calls and, lifestyle changes and tweaks to, diet and lifestyle. And we've gotten real-time feedback on that, like real data, right? And I've seen people massively improve their cortisol levels and their recoverability scores, which is often something that a lot of people miss, right? And then we can see that backed by real-time data to see what's working and what's not. So I'm going to share some of those findings and some of those learnings today with you guys and give you some real applicable steps that you can take today if you think that stress is something that is holding you back, right? So, and I'll just say this, we're all affected by stress, right? I'm on such a plateau, last 25 pounds, and I'm now fat. Yeah, cool, awesome. Yeah, so I'm going to give you some real applicable things to think about today, Henrik. The truth is, the truth is that all of us are affected by stress, right? It's just the way of the world these days. It's a necessary evil for us to function in society, essentially, right? And it can come from work, which is the usual, right? But it can also come from relationship stress or just the daily routine, right? And a host of other things. And I think a lot of people understand that it can impact your body's ability to burn fat and build muscle, right? And it can kind of hinder your efforts, even if you're maybe making really good dietary changes and doing some good things, right? But I think a lot of people underestimate the degree to which that can impact your effort, right? And your results. And that's why it's so cool to use things like blood work and self-quantifying devices, because like with my clients, for instance, I might be giving them insights and saying, hey, maybe we should look at this stuff, or maybe that's an issue we want to look at. But when you see the data doesn't lie, right? And it clearly shows if there's an issue or not, right? And whether it's, stress related, and it kind of can point us in some directions to make really informed decisions, right? What gets measured gets managed, right? And that really helps influence behavior change, right? And not wasting your time on things that aren't going to give you the biggest result for your effort, right? So if you're somebody who's struggling to shed those extra pounds and you've hit a plateau, and you feel like you've put in the work. Maybe you've got an extensive dieting history. You've done lots of challenges, and you know what hard work looks like. You know what discipline looks like, but you're not quite seeing the results that you would like to for that effort. Then it might be time to take a closer look at something like stress, right? Now you might be thinking, okay, I can't just make my stress magically disappear. Like, my life is hectic, right? And you're absolutely right. It is a part of life, right? The thing is that it's not always just about lowering our stress. Like, yes, we want to do everything we can to do that, but you can also bolster your resilience to stress as well, right? So, again, this comes through lifestyle change, but it also comes through kind of hacking your physiology, and that takes a little bit of time. Okay, and I'm going to get into some of that here in a. But what we really want to do is we want to try to really do everything we can to mitigate stress and lower our stress, especially in the evenings. And I think that that's where we have the most control, right? Is when your day is over. And that's the most important time to bring your cortisol levels down, right? And that's going to also give you the biggest bang for your buck, right? So I'm going to share some of the lifestyle changes and a few biohacks as well that's pretty cool. Just a mixture of new technology, and then of course the lifestyle changes are really the bread and butter, right? And by implementing specific lifestyle changes like these and different interventions, we can really train our body to handle stress and to reduce the negative impacts it has on our health and our performance, right? So if that sounds interesting to you, if you feel like you're going to benefit from that, don't want to miss with this one. Grab a pen and paper, sit back, get ready to learn, and I guarantee you will come away with something with this one, and your confidence about breaking through that plateau will be much higher. So, okay, let's get into it. Real quick, let me just dive a little bit deeper into stress and its impact on our body's ability to lose weight and build muscle, right? So you might have noticed that, at different stages of life, or, at different seasons of the year where you have a lot more stress, that it's just harder, right? It's harder to lose the fat and gain muscle, right? And there is a reason. There's a scientific reason for that. When we're stressed out, our body's natural response is to release cortisol, the stress hormone, right? Now, cortisol is a necessary hormone, right? We need it, right? We need it to function, but we want it in the right amounts and in the right windows of time during the day. And most of us are just chronically elevated all the time. It's not that our cortisol is like way too high. It's never really coming down. That's really the issue, right? And so what we really want is we want spike in the morning, and then we want to see that fall off throughout the day. And what's happening to most of us is we're getting the spike, and then it's kind of staying mid-range all day long, and we're never really getting the drop that we need, right? And that affects a whole host of different things down the line, right? So, it's really about harnessing cortisol, right? And optimizing it, right? So let me just ask you this. If anybody's watching this, do you struggle with getting up in the middle of the night to take a pee? If you do, it's probably not that your bladder's too full. It's probably not that you drank too much water, and it's usually not a prostate issue either, right? It has a lot more to do with cortisol, right? What it is your bladder feels full, and then you get a little bit of an arousal, meaning that your cortisol jumps, and that's what causes you to wake up. But you should be able to hold your bladder all the way through the night without any issues, and wake up, and then you got to run to the bathroom, right? And that's a sign that if you can do that, your cortisol is probably okay. If you're waking up multiple times a night and you don't have prostate issues, then your cortisol is out of whack, right? So that's just a little feedback to say, like, okay, this is something that I probably should treat with some respect and really look at. Okay. So I've got a study pulled up here conducted by the American Psychological Association. And the study, they found that people who experience high levels of stress over a long period of time, I think it was 6 months or more, were more likely to have excess specific belly fat. Okay. So in fact, they found that I think it was for every 10 points of increase in perceived stress, the risk of being overweight increased by 50%. 50%. That's a significant impact, right? And this is something that has been really, really well studied, right? And let me dig into that a little bit more, right? When our bodies are under stress, again, cortisol is released, right? And this can cause the liver to release glucose into the bloodstream. So it's correlated with insulin sensitivity, right? So this increases insulin levels, and then it leads to more fat storage, essentially, particularly in the belly area, right? Cortisol can also inhibit the breakdown of fat for energy, right? Which causes more fat cell accumulation, essentially, right? And when our bodies are under chronic stress, the immune system is also activated, which causes inflammation, which causes cellular dysregulation, especially in fat cells, right? So this leads to insulin resistance. It can impair the body's ability to regulate blood sugars. And it's just going to contribute to overall more weight gain, essentially, right? So this is when like the calories in, calories out thing kind of gets thrown out the window. Like, yes, that is the best way to manipulate your body weight over time. But there's also these little nuanced things like cortisol, right? And if you have elevated cortisol, you also have elevated inflammation in your cells as well, right? And again, that fat cell dysregulation is a real issue, right? That's literally damage to the cells. It's damage to the tissues. And over time, it can be damage to organs, which can lead to all kinds of issues with your health down the line, right? So unfortunately, this it's not just like a cosmetic thing, right? It's not just a physique thing. It can lead to all kinds of issues, diabetes, heart disease, and really affect your lifespan and your longevity. So, yeah, I mean, that's just a list of things. And honestly, it gets worse than that too, right? High cortisol levels don't just impact your body's ability to shed fat and how it stores fat, but it also is directly correlated with, a deficiency of building muscle. Okay. So when cortisol levels are really high, it actually breaks down muscle tissue and it hinders your body's ability to recover from workouts effectively. So then you're dealing with decreased muscle mass and strength, right? And you've heard me say this before, but if you want to make weight loss much, much easier, build muscle, build as much muscle as you can. Try to get close to your genetic potential for muscle for your age, right? And as you get older, that becomes more and more important for quality of life and length of life, right? You want to be holding on to as much muscle as possible. And that's going to make it much easier to stay lean because muscle needs to eat calories, right? That's the best way to achieve a lean athletic physique. And make it easy over the long term. I've said it before like this, like everyone wants to build passive income. Well, if you want to be lean and athletic, build passive muscle. And it's going to make the diet so much easier because your wiggle room gets more and more, essentially, the more muscle you have, right? So not good. You really want to address this, right? If you think that it's an issue, and again, what gets measured gets managed. If you want to go get the blood labs done, you can test your cortisol. You can see what your cortisol is at, right? If you want to wear a wearable like an Oura ring or a Whoop, you can get a recoverability score, which is going to tell you where your cortisol is essentially, right? You want to make sure that your recoverability is higher than your stress. Okay, so pretty bleak. Definitely something you want to look at. it's going to make things a lot more easy if you do improve your cortisol and your stress response. So let me give you some things to do about it, right? Here's the thing. It has big impacts, but to reverse it can actually be pretty simple. With the right lifestyle changes and interventions and a few of the biohacks that I'm going to share with you today, you can pretty easily combat the negative impacts of stress on your body. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty on what to do about combating stress, right? And take control of your body's ability to burn fat and build muscle. Okay. And if you guys have any questions too, just drop them in the comments. I am going to do Q&A towards the end, but if you drop a question, I'll see if I can answer it in real time. So yeah, look, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but number one, you've heard me say it before, getting enough quality of sleep is the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to cortisol. The thing is it's kind of like works both ways. If your cortisol is elevated, it's going to affect your sleep, right? But then if you sleep poor, that's going to affect your cortisol. So you want to at least like start somewhere. And if you can make improvements in your sleep, you'll kind of reverse that negative feedback loop, hopefully, right, with time. But this is something I've dealt with firsthand. I used to have like legit insomnia, right, in the past. I used to take Ambien and what was it, like the NyQuil pills and everything. It wasn't good, right? I've always struggled with sleep. And it wasn't until I came across this knowledge that I really started treating it with respect. And that's when I started really noticing that, hey, this doesn't have to be so freaking difficult, dude. Like, you're doing everything right. You know how to work out. You know how to eat. Like, if you just focus on these things, it's going to be much, much easier, right? I recently had a client who was in the same situation too. He was doing everything right. And he had a really good transformation already. Actually, he lost 19 pounds in 3 months. And, he was doing well with the diet. He was eating the right foods. He was exercising regularly, really high adherence rate. But then he hit a plateau for several weeks. And no matter what he did, he couldn't really break through, right? And it wasn't until we looked at his sleep and his recoverability scores through tools like the Oura ring, and he actually got a comprehensive blood panel done. And that made it obvious. The fact that his cortisol was out of whack and his testosterone levels were out of whack as well, right? So again, what gets measured gets managed. That informed us, to open up the conversation about sleep. And we discovered that his sleep quality was really poor. He wasn't dealing with stress in the best way possible, like the daily stress from work and everything. And so now we knew what we needed to bring up, right? We knew where the deficit was, right? Instead of playing the guessing game. And then we started making changes, right? And we started making some changes to his lifestyle, his diet, a few other things to kind of combat all of that and improve those markers. And he started feeling better, right? And started noticing some really positive feedback. He started having more energy. He started feeling younger, and just more drive, more ambition. Just like overall, he started feeling better, right? And then we even put him on a recovery diet, right? So he was on a diet for a little bit too long, and then he needed to be on a recovery diet, which is a really great way to improve recoverability, right? And then eventually he was in a strong place to lose weight again, right? And then the simple rule of calories in and calories out, like that worked again. It wasn't working for him in the past, but then it started working again because he got his basic health markers in check. Okay. So this is the nuance in which, that simple rule of thermodynamics, calories in versus calories out, it kind of gets thrown out the window again, right? And that's why it's not always the best advice for everyone. Like, sure, we could have kept hammering away at the daily calories and getting them into a deficit and, crushing it in the gym and all that. And he probably would have continued to lose weight to some degree. But again, that ceiling for long-term progress would have been just much lower. And it wouldn't have happened without some adverse effects to his nervous system, his metabolism, and his hormones. Okay. So it's better to just kind of like take a step back sometimes and just look at these little nuanced things and realize that actually taking a step back and resetting instead of just hammering away at the diet and the training is the quickest way to break through that plateau. Okay. So I know getting enough sleep and reducing stress is easier said than done. And for me, that's where things like, biohacking and lifestyle intervention can really move the needle. Okay. So let me see. I got some questions in here. How many hours of sleep, Enric? So many people watch. Yeah, I agree. I've been getting a lot more people who watch the recordings too that I may have glossed over. I think you asked how many hours of sleep. In the study, it was under 7. And that's an area too that there's some emerging research coming out as well that I saw where like it may not be as much about the length as the quality, because there was a study that came out recently that I was geeking out on that said that people who slept under 7 hours but got really high quality sleep in that 7 hours actually had longer lifespans. And that, if you needed more time, it could be even a sign that like you weren't as healthy, essentially. But that's different than somebody who's getting 7 hours and waking up and it's not the high quality sleep that you really want to be getting. So I think, starting out by trying to get 8 hours is a good step in the, step in the right direction for most people. But, if you get to a place where you're like, hey, my sleep is super optimized and it, and you've got the biofeedback and everything, then you can play with maybe shortening the time a little bit. Cool. Yeah. So let me get into some of the biohacks and lifestyle interventions that I wanted to share that I've used with my clients. And just to be clear with any of this, it's like, if your nutrition training and basic health habits are in check, then this stuff can be a game changer. It does work. It does move the needle, but it doesn't hold a candle to the foundational stuff. Okay. So just to name a few, I want to get into a few because they're the ones that I'm most familiar with and have seen the data to say, hey, these work, and they're, all backed by evidence. Red light therapy, and then really looking at sleep optimization through supplementation and hacking your sleep environment. And then probably the most powerful free tool that you have is breath work. And that's like probably, again, the most powerful modality that we have to instantly create a physiological change. Okay. There's a few other herbal supplements that I like that help with cortisol and stress as well. Ashwagandha is really researched and has a lot of good stuff behind it. And Rhodelia as well. Red light therapy is great. It is an investment. You spend money on what you value. I've got this here. This is the Juve. I bought this probably when they first came out. And they're pricey. This is like the Cadillac of all the red lights, essentially. But it is a high quality light, and the quality does seem to range quite a bit. But basically what a red light does is red light therapy. There's thousands and thousands of studies on them, and they were used for, cancer patients or burn victims, also elderly populations that needed healing and that sort of thing. But they speed up the healing process essentially. And it's infrared, near infrared, far infrared, and then red light, right? And it's like really powerful red lights essentially. And what they do is they just improve cellular function, right? They reduce inflammation, and essentially they increase ATP production in the cells that are exposed to the light, which can be beneficial for all kinds of reasons, but especially for reducing stress. So what they found essentially is that humans have their own form of photosynthesis. It's called photobiomodulation. And again, there's countless studies on this, on how it improves sleep quality, significantly impacts stress levels, especially if you are in the northern hemisphere, right? And you don't get a lot of sunlight. And what this does is it emulates intense morning and evening sunlight, essentially, right? Thanks, Anric. Let me go back and just repeat myself for a second. What I was saying essentially is that the red light, what it basically does is it emulates intense morning and evening sunlight, which has been shown to be really, really beneficial for things like healing and hormone production, right? Hormone production. So it's kind of dose specific depending on where you shine it on your body. So if you want to like grow your hairline back, it can help with that. It helps with skin. It's just ATP production in the cells. They also have a bunch of studies where, you know, dudes were shining it on their balls essentially, and their testosterone levels went up like 300%. And that was kind of the thing that made me say, hey, I'm buying that, right? I'm spending money on that. So it's a wonderful tool. It has lots of research behind it. The Juve is definitely the Cadillac when it comes to the red lights, but there's other brands out there as well that are a little less expensive that I think have pretty good reputations behind them. So that's a big one. It's just a simple piece of technology that can really help. And again, it's been proven with a lot of research and evidence to help with things like cortisol, but there's other benefits that make it well worth it, in my opinion. Actually, yes, it does. So for I don't know what you're thinking there, but it does help with women in regulating their hormones as well, progesterone and testosterone, which women want to have healthy levels of testosterone and progesterone as well. And it really helps just with optimization of hormones and regulation, essentially. So that's the red light. A few things on sleep optimization. I'm going to answer all your questions, Anric. Sleep optimization. So there's a few things that I've seen that really help, but I want to talk about just a few supplements that can help. And again, this is not medical advice. Again, you really want to make sure, you know, that you're deficient in these things before just like taking a bunch of them. But there's a few things to look at there that are pretty proven, and I think most of us would benefit from taking. The ones that I really like are probably the best one is L-tryptophan. If you can get L-tryptophan in like an amino acid powder in a high dose, Keon supplements has one that's really good. They also have L-theanine in it. Pharma grade GABA is really good for helping you get deeper levels of sleep. Magnesium, if you're deficient in it, can make a difference, but for some people, it won't do anything. And then, if needed, melatonin. And that's really for me just to reset your circadian rhythm. So people who travel, you know, I had a client who traveled 4 to 5 times a month, and he was going across time zones. And so every time, you know, he just getting all screwed up essentially. So for him, he started taking a high dose of melatonin as soon as he landed. That would help him get to sleep, and then he could reset he's kind of biohacking his circadian rhythm essentially. Right. And he saw a lot of improvements there with just kind of getting back on track faster doing that. But those are the big ones. The L-tryptophan is probably my favorite because it's just an amino acid, and it's something that most of us don't get enough of. And then the pharmaceutical grade GABA, magnesium, melatonin if needed, and L-theanine as well. So yeah, definitely if you're traveling though, consider the melatonin, or if you're just trying to get back on track with a consistent sleep schedule, it can be helpful. Otherwise, maybe stay away from it because it is one of those things. It is a hormone and you don't really want to be relying on it necessarily. So that's it for the supplements. Let's talk about lifestyle changes. in my opinion, the biggest bang for your buck in terms of lifestyle changes is in this order. Number one, not eating too close to bed. And that's backed by science to say that that's probably the biggest impact on your quality of sleep and getting to bed. Number two, the second most influential thing is lights, right? So screen time, right? Turn the screens off as soon as you can. Ideally at least an hour, but if you can, like 2 or 3 hours before bed would be the best, right? To mitigate that, if you can't step away from the screen, definitely look at getting those blue block glasses. I've got a pair on here because sometimes, that especially if you're an entrepreneur, comes with the territory, right? So that's the second one. And then number three is the most impactful thing is probably your environment, your sleep environment, right? Your sleep environment. And then after that, I would say some type of routine to wind down. Okay. So for your environment, it's pretty simple. Keep it dark, keep it cool. Here. All right. Just make sure I'm back on there. Okay. Nice, Anric. Sleep like the dead lately. Good. Awesome. You're on it, dude. I think I'm back on. I saw my screen black out there for a second, but I'm gonna crack on unless anybody tells me otherwise. And then lastly, like I said, some type of routine in the evening to wind down. Breath work, again, is the most powerful modality that we have to instantly create a physiological change in the body and change our state as well. And it can massively help with decreasing cortisol just before bed. It's an incredible tool. It'll help reduce stress. It'll help, improve your overall well-being throughout the day. I really like box breathing, deep belly breathing. Okay, I'm back. Thanks, man. Yeah, deep belly breathing, alternate nostril breathing is really good as well. Box breathing is probably my favorite if you're trying to wind down. There's the Wim Hof stuff that's good too, but for winding down in the evenings, I like the slower techniques. Another great one is the double inhale and then a slow exhale. Exhale like twice as long as you inhale, essentially. Really, really powerful stuff. And what it does essentially is it just activates the parasympathetic nervous system, right? Which is responsible for that rest and digest and recovery response, which is what we all want. And really, again, with this, like start small, 10 minutes, 10-minute breathwork session just before bed, like right before your head hits the pillow, can make a dramatic difference in the quality of your sleep and how quickly you get to bed. Okay. So, with all of these things, any of these gadgets or supplements or little hacks, it's not just about that. It's about looking at the whole picture, right? The holistic approach and really, really understanding how it's all connected, body, mind, all of that. And then using the technology to make it easier, right? That's where that comes in. It just moves the needle a little bit, in my opinion. And that's worthwhile in a lot of cases. So, that's one reason I make sure that my clients definitely have the foundation first in nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management, all of those things, before we look at any of these technologies, right? Because again, that's not going to hold a candle to that foundational work, but it can make a difference. Last thing on that is that the diet does play a significant role in combating stress as well, right? There's certain foods that can make stress worse or exacerbate it, and then there's certain foods that can help mitigate it, and also calories as well, right? If you've been in a caloric deficit for a long period of time, you may have to go on a recovery diet and then slowly bring the calories up for a little while so that you help reduce stress and allow your body to recover. And also allow your body to, sort of optimize, like your metabolism goes up when you bring your calories up as well, right? But calories next to sleep is your biggest lever to combat stress. And that's hard for a lot of people, especially people who have plateaued, when they hear, hey, you got to eat more. And then, the scale goes up a pound or two. It's like, no way, man, I'm not doing that. But in actuality, if you do it right and you slowly bring the calories up little by little, like maybe 10% each week for several weeks, you shouldn't really gain much weight at all if you do it right. Okay, so then you've effectively raised your calories, and then you've recovered, and you've put yourself in a much stronger place to go at it again. Okay, so I think that's all the tips I had for that on optimization and biohacking to help with sleep and cortisol. I'll just add this: it's not just about what you do; it's also about what you don't do. Alcohol, 5 cups of coffee a day, processed. If you want to get a hold of improving your body's ability to recover efficiently and build muscle and burn fat with more ease, then get a hold on those things, right? And if you need, get some help with them. Try to make your environment as supportive as possible. Okay, at the end of the day, stress is a massive barrier to weight loss and performance. And again, I've seen people create massive changes just in a short amount of time, just with these lifestyle interventions that I shared with you today. So just know that it can be done, and you will see pretty significant improvements in a short amount of time if you stick with it. Okay, and you build that consistency, right? So give them a try. If you're watching the recording, write them down, and then just pick one. Okay, start by tackling a few targets each week. Momentum over perfection, right? And just make them as doable as possible. Make them so doable that it's hard to fail at. 1 to 3 things a week. That's 30 things in 12 weeks. And sometimes that can be complete life change, right? So maybe it's just getting to bed 15 minutes earlier on week 1, or it's hacking your bedroom environment to be a little bit more supportive for quality of sleep, right? Maybe it's cutting out some of the processed junk, or, setting alarms to do a quick 10-minute breathwork session just before bed. Just start small, right? And then stack those wins over time. Okay. All right. I think that's all I have for today. As always, if you have any questions, I might have some questions in the Facebook group. I'll check in there real quick, but if you want me to clarify on anything, let me know in the comments below. Let me just look through the questions here to see if we got anything. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up the Facebook group. Okay. Cool. Okay, it looks like we got one in the Facebook group from Jonah. Okay. There any natural supplements you can recommend to reduce stress? Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you caught that one, but adaptogenics, right? Adaptogenic herbs like ashwagandha, rhodiola, they can really help combat stress. Again, if you're deficient in something like magnesium or vitamin D, they can make a huge difference if you're deficient. And a lot of people are, actually, especially if you're working out a lot, or if you don't get outside a lot. Those are sort of like master hormones. They have a lot of impact on other hormones, essentially. Again, get some blood work done. Get a comprehensive blood work panel done if you like, and then you'll definitely know. Every night, getting up at 6 is tough. I get to sleep at 1 every night, and getting up at 6 is tough. Yeah, Anric, didn't you mention that you like to get up pretty early, huh? Okay. Well, we got one more in the group here. What's the best biohack for reducing stress? That's a tough one. I think it probably would vary from person to person. I think I'd have to go with breath work, though. Again, that's the one where I've seen the most dramatic difference for myself. And yeah, I think it's actually probably one of the most impactful on our body's ability to kind of de-stress and lower cortisol as well. And it's free, right? You can do it anywhere. You can do it multiple times a day, even if it's just like quick little stints. So yeah, give it a try. Try the box breath. Just do it 10 minutes, right? Do 20 rounds of box breath once a day and just see what happens. See how you feel. Okay. Okay, cool. I think that's it for the questions. All right, you guys. Thanks for watching in the Facebook group. If you're there, feel free to drop questions on this recording will be up. If you're watching this later, and I'll get to your questions. I'm pooped. It's the end of the week. I got to get off. I still got to get my workout in. And Rick, thanks again for the questions as well. I hope you found this live informative and helpful. Remember, reducing stress, again, it's crucial for overall health, not just, manipulating your body weight and getting a lean athletic physique. But it will significantly impact those things as well. So if you feel like that's something you need, help with, or you've got other questions about it, please send them my way. And again, try these lifestyle interventions. It doesn't help you just to listen to me talk about them. Go try them. See what feedback you get from trying these things. And I hope you do implement some of these things that I've shared with you today. So, all right. That's it for today. Feel free to reach out and send me a message if you got any questions on this one. If you know anybody who might benefit from hearing this, please tag them below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.